Okay, dude.
Go
I
on.
have a guy in my discipleship group who is he was talking about how he doesn't have any time to take vacation.
Your life is
you
a vacation.
literally,
Your life is a vacation.
like as long as your boss is cool with it, you can literally just get up and go anywhere. Like you don't have to like do
do
any
whatever you
planning
want.
even.
Yeah.
You can just drive and figure it out.
So I completely agree. I know we're not on film anymore,
Yeah.
but I completely agree. The only other thing that I've even had to challenge my thinking with that, because I'd say like I'm 22. I was raised by a boomer, right? Like a guy. He's almost 70 years old. He's a worker. Like I was raised by a different generation,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
I know how to work.
Same with me,
right?
yeah.
Very different than maybe some of the guys my age. But what I will say is this is what I've had to challenge myself to remember is that a lot of people my age take their what we would call downtime, chill time, way more seriously.
Yeah, grind
Way
time.
more heavy. Way more like the right for us, like posting our, like in 2012 when you were on Instagram posting your food on like social media, was just like, oh cool, it's cool. For them, like there's hours of thought that goes into a single
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a motive behind everything.
like seriously, and it's like there's a weightiness to it. And I'm not saying that.
No.
I completely agree, but a lot of people will be like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Or literally, they're factoring in these things. Like,
Yeah.
like I've got students that are factoring in like I've got to spend time thinking about like my posts, like my like what I'm doing.
There's no time to rest. There's,
Right.
you're not,
Yeah,
you don't,
that's
you
why
can't live
you're
in the
anxious.
moment.
You're still like spinning, right?
No
exactly.
wonder we're anxious, right?
And just let it go. Like, just let it go.
So, Will, you really care about your outward appearance. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Man. So, we're not
We're not starting yet, are
It
we?
looks good. Oh.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep going. So,
Oh, did we already start?
so it's gonna be whatever it is. So,
Oh no, that's bad.
but you care about your
My wife's gonna
appearance.
watch this.
Yeah, I think it's more of like what I wear, I think. Like, I just like, I don't know, I think I like some of the clothes. I like certain brands. Maybe sometimes I take a little bit too seriously on what I wear and how I like organize it, whatnot.
Don't be ashamed. We had a whole like grouping. All three guys were talking about their appearance and how important it was to them. So
Really?
you're not alone, man.
Yeah,
it's not unmanly, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I was just raised in the Bay where, and like growing up in high school, like style and what you wear was like a big part of, like they says a little bit about who you are as well.
Right.
So I just take high value in that, I guess.
Yeah.
So try to watch what I spend on H&M and all that. So
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how the trend has shifted from like just individual, like what you look like, to now it's digital, right?
Yeah.
Like it's literally like, how do I appear to the world is now a thing,
Absolutely.
which is crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah.
That's what people are focused on, is like saying the right things, doing the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think definitely on like Instagram. Like I've definitely felt this. Like recently my wife and I, we took a trip to Santa Barbara. We made like a little highlight video highlighting all the really cool things. But little did people know, like we actually fought a lot on that trip. That was our first trip as a married couple, like to going to somewhere, and they just don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. But I think Instagram, it's almost looked down upon if you like, or people like give you side eye if you're like not putting out good stuff. Like if you put really emotional stuff or really sad things, like they're like, oh, like, yeah, okay, cool. But like, and you also like get compassion and empathy, but it's just a weird, Instagram, it's very in between. There's it's not realistic at all.
Everyone's like expected to be a content creator.
Oh yeah.
You know, now
absolutely.
like there was a point in time where that probably was just like, oh, some people, it was a job. It's like, dude, even most teenagers now, right? I feel I'm on that younger end, like I'm getting into my 20s now, but like most of these like teenagers I work with, dude, they're expected to be like content creators, and they are, and they're like good, right? Like you've got like 14, 15-year-old kids who've got like a couple 100,000 followers on TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, just because they know how to make like a funny video, you know, and look and also look good and care about their appearance. And it's all of those things, man.
Yeah.
So are people just like thinking all the time about like, how can I turn this into like a public thing? Because I just don't think like that. I'm a little bit more old school.
Yeah.
Like I'm just in the moment. Like whatever happens in the moment is the moment. But it feels like people are just like looking at, hey, how can this be spun?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so for the most part. I mean, it's like I think everyone's a lot more sensitive. Is kind of acclimating to be more sensitive to how I say what I say, how I communicate.
Yeah.
But I'm not even saying sensitive in a good way. Maybe sensitive turns into dishonest.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of stuff is just staged.
Right.
People are
Right.
just like, and I watch it. I'm like, nobody thinks it's real, right? People are like, "Whoa, you guys are so wacky! I can't believe it." I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you set it
get
up.
it.
Yeah. If you've ever seen like a couple's TikTok page,
"Yep,
Yeah.
it's just like no one actually,
nobody does that.
no one does this, man.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd be divorced if you're pranking your wife like that."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's no way. Becca does not like.
I'll show my wife. What would you do if I did this? Just like,
kill.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The amount of times my girlfriend's been like, "Oh, I have this TikTok idea I've got to do with you," and I'm just like, oh, "Okay, am I gonna do something wrong and end
Yeah,
up like,
exactly.
you're like, oh yeah, that one dude on
Go
the Bible
viral for
page.
the wrong
Yeah.
reasons.
Oh
yeah.
You
Yeah.
figure where anxiety comes from, right?
Right.
Like,
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Just
then
trying to keep up. Yeah.
yeah, then you just start comparing yourself to other people, and
Yeah.
right. If
sure.
you get excited when you do something better than someone else, and it's not just based off of what you're doing, right? It's
Yeah.
based off of what this person isn't doing.
For
and
sure.
ultimately, you're gonna crash, man, because you can't sustain like
yeah.
that. So.
Comparison, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like social media and everything has shifted to like not just being about my own platform, but saying the right thing, right?
Yeah.
The whole virtuous signaling, like,
Yeah.
am I saying the right thing? Am I aligning
Yep.
with the right people, the right ideas?
Yeah.
What have you guys seen? Just, you're probably a little more involved in social media
Well,
than I am.
Yeah.
it's changing now. Like even I think just in the last couple of years, right? Like we're shifting from like a general, oh, I post what I want when I want to there's like an expectation.
Yeah. For sure.
Of
Yeah.
if you're gonna put something out, what it has to look like, what it has to say. I mean,
Right.
we learned this just in like the protests and riots and the push to vote, which I don't like by no means was a bad thing, but it's just crazy that there was like this, so many even organizations, large organizations that didn't post on Instagram, got reamed for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You have to say
crazy.
something about everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
An event happens,
Yeah.
every company, every organization has to make a statement to
right.
align with the right
Yes.
thinking.
Yeah,
Right?
I
I'm
do
pretty sure I saw
not
Clorox do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
commercial.
No one
I
cares
was
what Clorox is
Like, yeah, I
doing.
wasn't thinking, oh, I wonder what Clorox is thinking right now. Like the Arm & Hammer dude, like what's he doing?
Right.
What does my cookie brand think about this?
I really
Can't have Oreos anymore, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah.
I think silence has taken on. I think when the whole BLM movement happened last year, man, I personally felt really convicted because I had a friend that was really passionate about it. And I didn't know what to say, and it was a really hard conversation because I think my silence was taken for I don't care.
Right.
When I think there's such an imbalance of like, man, where do I say what do I say when like I just lost my train of thought.
No, but I get it. I've struggled with that so much too because I would much rather do something
Yeah.
than say something,
Right.
or at least I'd rather do something
sure.
before I say something.
Yeah.
Like I just think about when every 6 months there's a different flavor, even more frequently than that there's a different flavor, right?
Yeah.
But like when abortion was this hot topic a couple of years ago, I just was looking around at everybody fighting and arguing about the topic of abortion, and I was thinking, how many people who are on this side are willing to actually do something? How many people who are on this side are willing to actually
sure.
do something?
Right.
And it just feels like people don't want to get skin in the game, but they want to look like they have it in the game.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh, that's good.
And social media lets us do that.
Right.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
a way that kind of enables us to.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we can like pretend like we're more interested than we are.
Right.
And that's why, I've been silent on a lot of things. One, because I'm not really on social media, but
Yeah.
two, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Sure.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure to say the right thing, and I'd rather just not mess up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the fear in me. But yeah, like, it doesn't mean I don't value those things. And I think
Right.
that we have to like kind of walk that tension,
Yeah.
especially as men in this society who our voice is not like welcomed in a lot of circles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that with some people there's a need to agree with everything that I think. Like I just want whoever I'm going to be following, whoever I'm going to be friends with. If there's this need that they have to agree with everything that I think, what that shows in me is weakness, right? Because it shows to me that I'm not willing to hear other perspectives, and ultimately that's kind of what the gospel's about, right? Is that God the God of the universe got into a different perspective. He got into my perspective by becoming human and walking in my shoes, walking in human flesh, right? Yeah. And that's me rejecting that. That's me saying, I don't want to get in somebody else's shoes. I just want you to agree with things the way that I do, right? I just want you to believe the things that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for men who tend to be less emotional in general, who aren't swayed as often to new ways of thinking. A lot of guys just stay cemented in their thinking, to be open to seeing things from a different point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
Because God's constantly challenging us, and we need to learn compassion and care for others.
Yeah.
So, so I think everybody's trying to show that they're virtuous, right?
Right.
And what do we do as men to like actually be virtuous in a culture that's just like going down the toilet? You know, we're struggling to find any moral compass, and everybody disagrees about what a moral compass is. Where things that used to be seen as good are now seen as evil, right? Like an intact family that's heterosexual is like frowned upon, right? And you know, whatever happened the other night at the Grammys with like simulated lesbian sex is now celebrated, right? Like that's a big problem in our culture. How do we like still remain virtuous?
Yeah. I think there's two things that as men I've seen that we have lost a sense of passion for the right things, right? We're so passionate about like sports or like investing or other things that like are not, I guess, not of like the church and like not our faith as well. And so there's that opposite spectrum of like, I'm so passionate about one area, and then there's another side of like, man, I don't really care about anything. And I think it's because like we don't want to feel rejected and we don't want to feel wrong as men.
Right.
So I think two things we've lost. One, we've lost our sense of passion for loving others, right, and loving the church. And then two, I think we've become ignorant or we've become really lazy in a sense of like engaging in those things. And also I think even just saying like, I don't know, or like releasing control, that like, I don't understand this, like I want to. I think that's also, I feel like as men, we've lost like a sense of like surrendering as well.
Yeah. So. And I think there's, I don't know if this thought, you guys can maybe correct it, but it seemed like everybody was on their keyboards, you know, especially during COVID. Yeah. Like that's where I showed whether I'm virtuous or not. And what I noticed, at least in my areas of ministry, people stopped serving, right? Like it's like, well, I can't make a big difference by putting my thoughts out there and getting everybody to listen to me, so I'm just not going to do anything. I don't know if you guys have seen that, or maybe that's my experience. But we kind of lost our like teeth, our grit. Actually doing stuff.
There's no real conviction. In what we do, and what as men, I think just in general, I see it in church. Like honestly, more than anywhere, is it's like, you know, like you were saying, passion, and conviction is what kind of came up in my mind as you were saying that. To like, okay, if something that means something to me, right, like heavily, and then I go, okay, I'm gonna go type about it. Yeah, like that's a thing. Sure, that's a step, and maybe for some people it's a big step. I know for me, making a post. It's not a big step, man. I mean, we might want to chalk it up like that. Right. It's really not.
Easy to do.
Easy to do. Really easy to do, man. And especially these young guys, man, it's just getting easier because it's just what we do.
Right.
But what are you doing with your life? What does that lead you to do?
And most of the time, that's not serving in church.
Right.
That's the last step. That's the last step.
Yeah. So we're focused on sports. We're trying to be successful in life. We're focused on investments. Like I think those are great examples.
Yeah. What's funny is like from the ethical perspective, virtue is about your character development. Like that's really what that whole idea of virtue comes from. It's like, are you going to be vicious? Or are you going to submit to these vices? Or are you going to be the kind of person who has virtue? And it's all about doing stuff. But now it's become all about what other people think I'm doing or what other people think I align with. Right?
And I think social media and us going on platforms to say what we think, once people like give us some kind of affirmation or encouragement, we will eat it up.
Right.
We will eat it up. But if we go to the church, we will hear that we are a sinner, right? And we're not, and we're flawed. And like as men, we don't want to hear that. Right. And I remember the first time I came to St. Louis Church, I was reminded of how loved I was, but also how like messed up and broken I was. And men don't want to hear that.
Right.
And maybe that's why men are so polarized to do anything nowadays, is because now even when you hop up on social media and you say something wrong as a man, especially specifically if you're a white male.
Yeah.
So you're going to church, you're getting reamed. You go on social media, you're getting reamed.
Yeah.
I'm just going to shut up and not say a word.
Right,
and then I'm getting reamed for that. So it's like,
What do I do?
I'm not saying it's like you know, there's a simple solution to that.
Right.
I'm just recognizing there is a tension.
Yeah.
Right. Not saying you should be silent. In fact, I'd say quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But there is a tension.
Yeah.
right?
And I
Yes.
think,
So all throughout the New Testament, we're like taught these things that we're not supposed to do and these things that we are supposed to do. How can we encourage guys in the church to actually be virtuous, like you're saying, to like take on virtue? Like what do we do to get guys excited about being virtuous men?
Yeah, I think that you tell stories of redemption. Like you think about the things that God has done in your life through serving and being a part of other people's lives and of the church, and of how that's actually how you experience God. I think if you tell those stories, you talk with your friends about that really draws people in.
Yeah. It's also in pursuing virtue, you get the only real tangible rewards that we get in this lifetime. I mean, that's my personal experience, right? You know, I grew up in church for the most, you know, but made my share of silly mistakes, right? And pursuits of things, even within church context, that were just not virtuous, right? No reward has come from that. But when I've seek to be a better, to even, you know, I'm not a father, I'm not a husband, but in the pursuit of wanting to be those things someday, and the holy pursuit of being more like Christ, that's where I found the most reward, the most identity, the most secureness.
Right.
So it really is the only thing that actually reaps a lasting benefit. Right?
We can figure out who we really are by doing the things that Jesus did. That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that helped me, even just thinking about my own journey, right? I think the biggest thing that was so helpful for me was someone walking with me, right? Someone discipling with me. Someone, I had a mentor in college, and he called me out on things. He encouraged me, and he went through it with me, you know. And that's exactly what Jesus did. That's what Jesus is doing this weekend for us, Easter Sunday, right? He goes with us, right? And I think, personally for me, like I think it's so helpful that I have someone walking with me and guiding me, and then also pointing me to the truth, which is in the Word of God.
Right. And real virtue has actual lasting impact. You know, like fads come and go. Whoever has the attention of the world comes and goes. But when we love our wives, those of us who are married, when we love our kids, it impacts them for their life, right? And so virtue does matter. And I think that the lie is that virtue doesn't matter anymore because anybody can be whoever they want publicly. But it still matters for those around us. It matters for our relationships.
Absolutely.
It matters for the church. Like, I knew you served in kids ministry forever. And because you're like so old now. And
I know. I'm like, why do you have me with these two
young guys?
Father time's ticking.
I know. It's tough.
But just the impact that male leadership in kids ministry had was incredible, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy. I think, like, at least when I was in kids ministry, I don't know if this is still up to date, but 5% of kids ministry workers nationwide were male.
Wow.
5%.
Wow.
And we're talking about like a fatherless generation.
Right.
You know, and so I think it's just kind of a weird, interesting thing that God does. I mean, for me to kind of come up and really struggle with this identity of like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a father, to be a husband, and really start to work that out and figure it out through the weirdest, strangest thing, right? By serving in kids ministry, by teaching kids about Jesus, and by like kind of almost like learning really slowly as I was doing that too. I just think that was like invaluable, man.
And maybe to add to a myth that may exist even with the fatherless like generation bit, like that's absolutely true. And so even more so for men to be involved in the church because there's so many kids that are plugged into these issues that don't have kids, but just squash the myth that it's only beneficial for them. I have a great father. I have a father I look up to that I've learned so much from. If I did not have the mentor that I had when I was going through like middle school and high school, would not be here.
Right. For sure.
I would not be pursuing virtue in this way, right? I just it's just, I think that's a lie too, right? Is that okay? You know, man, if enough guys are there, if a few guys are there, even if they've got dads, like that's it. It's like, no, we all need that person who's a few steps ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And I think even when they walk with us, like I think as men, like we also need to say like, hey, we got to do it ourselves as well too, right? I think what also builds virtue is testing, right?
Yeah.
Testing it, refining it. And I think that ultimately leads to sustainability or resilience, and you're able to endure. As well.
Yeah, because then it becomes real.
Absolutely.
It's something that's, actually rooted in reality. It's been practiced. It's been tried. Yeah. That's such a huge thing, just to have, like you said, people in your life that are ahead of you.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's kind of just an apathy in the church, especially amongst men. Just to be involved. How do we get guys out of apathy? Like how are you guys? I mean, we've all probably been apathetic at points in our life.
Yeah.
What was that like catalyst that got you out of apathy?
Yeah. It's good.
For you had a mentor. That's probably part of it. Somebody that can
Totally.
speak to your life.
I think I can remember a moment, a conversation. It was in high school when this happened, but a moment where I felt like my presence at the church really mattered to another individual.
Yeah.
Right. And we all
that's great.
we all don't really like think of it in terms of that. But I had a conversation with a dude in high school who he literally pulled me aside and I almost didn't show up to a Wednesday night, youth program thing, because I had a history test. Never forget, I had a history test, and I was like, I either study or I go to church, right? Yeah. And it was one of those moments. I was never really that great of a student, but and I seriously, I was
act like you were.
I was worried because I was like, I could fail this class like, if I don't get this right. Yeah. But I made the decision to go to church, and that night, a guy my age pulled me aside and told me that he was like, yo, just want to let you know, I'm glad you're here tonight, man. I almost took my life today, but decided it was time to come to church.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Decided it was time to come to church tonight because I wanted to talk with you. I almost didn't go to study for a freaking history test.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
I got a D on that test. And I was in tears in the classroom when I got that because I was just like, my presence there matters.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's powerful.
So awesome, dude.
That is good. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's the lie that we believe is that our presence doesn't matter.
Yeah.
In a society that's trying to silence the male voice, and say that men are unimportant. I mean, Pastor Matt's talked about it. There's some that are saying we don't even need men anymore. We can artificially create life. Yeah. And quite the opposite. Like there's someone on the other side of you that needs your testimony, your story, what you've walked through, or just your presence. Like you were just there for that guy that night.
Yeah.
What a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And whether it's serving in kids or whatever, it's that we matter. Men matter. We create stability. God's called us to lead.
Yeah.
He's called us to be just a present force in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me personally, what gets me passionate about what I'm doing is, I think growing up, I didn't really have, although I did have a father, like he wasn't really there for me, I think emotionally and spiritually as well. And man, I think the Lord just instilled in me a big heart for the fatherless and young men who don't have an example. And I have such a big heart for that. And that makes me want to become a virtuous person or a faithful servant, and learn. So, and knowing what I'm learning right now and what I'm doing is not just impacting me, but it's going to influence whoever I'm around. Right. So that was a big part for me, man. I was just really, even being in young adult ministry after I graduated for college for 2 years, man, I see people, they just feel so joyful being a part of something bigger than themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having brothers around, man, it's just unexplainable, and I want people to feel included. I want people to feel like you guys belong, like you matter, And so that was a reason why I wanted to. That gets me fired up.
Yeah, and like everybody wants to be part of something big that's winning. There's nothing bigger in the world than the church. There's no greater movement of any kind in the world than the church. Now it's hidden to the eyes of many. It's not popular. It's not on social in the same ways. But man, being a part of, like, we're handing off the church to another generation. We're like, I'm almost double your age, right? Even though I feel like we're peers, I'm handing the church off to you, right? And you're handing it off to somebody. And we're like a part of what God's doing, and that's a powerful thing. Especially as men who desire success and desire to feel like we've made our mark in the world. I mean, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think you can notice that shift in your own life when you're going through this stuff, and you're trying to think of right. A lot of people show up to church when they want to be invested in, right? But you see the shift away from apathy when you start investing in others.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So,
man.
yeah. I noticed it, man, when I would show up to college group all the time, and I would just like want to get time with Andrew or you know, any of the other leaders or something. And when I started actually being welcoming to other people, inviting people to group, spending time with them afterwards, praying with them, and I started actually investing in other people,
Right.
it made me want to be there even more.
Right.
And it started to give me a picture for what the future was going to be. And I can look back now, and what's crazy is because Andrew met me when I was 18 and like fresh out of jail, and yeah, just rough around the edges, but yeah, thanks for still hiring me, by the way. But I look back on that and I go, man, like that makes me so much more open to all kinds of people who are coming to church and ready to invest in others. And I get to see what God has done through those relationships for years and years. Met this guy when he was like a fourth grader, I think. Yeah, and so it's crazy to just see that happen. As you guys get older, you're going to see that too.
Yeah, it's through our serving that we get our purpose.
Well, that's like I always feel like I have to apologize to young people, you know, to young men like my age who aren't plugged in, who had an experience of church that was like a movie theater, right? Like, and I just have to say that, like, I'm sorry that was the representation that was brought. Now, for some of them, it was interpretation. It was the way they received it, right? But I think it's a lot on us as men that are here, right? That are involved in church. You know, if you're someone who's involved in church, you know, who's your teeth are buried and you're doing the ministry, like, you've got that's what we've got to show to people, because that's not church. The movie theater bit of just I show up, get my peace, and leave. Feel this sort of sense of holiness, maybe a sense of virtue because I showed up and did this shit. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. And man, we got it. That's church, right? It's pouring into other people, being a part of that body. So.
Really, and you feel invested when you get invested, right? It's not just a feeling that happens all of a sudden. Like you have to take that step, you know, of like being virtuous rather than looking virtuous.
And that's what actually takes courage, not just typing it up and hitting send.
Right,
dude.
Sure.
Yeah, it does take courage. So great stuff, guys. I appreciate you guys taking time to
of course.
talk through it. Appreciate how you guys are living it out. You know, it's great to see young men in the church like stepping into these roles, and you guys are killing it. You're young compared to me.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, sweet.